Connie Schmidt, and I'm a real believer in operational excellence and quality. My mission is to help people like you create quality systems that improve not only your products, but your customers' experience, so you'll be a believer too. This series is a series about ISO 9001 and its requirements. I'm breaking all the requirements down and translating them so that they're easier to understand for you. In each video, I give you one good reason to trust me. And we're about to talk about sales a little bit. So I'll tell you, I have worked in the sales department. I've been a salesperson, and I understand how sometimes customers demand and industries demand that you have an ISO 9001 certified system. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The last video was about operational planning and control and figuring out what our processes are going to look like in order to make products and services. This one changes right in the same section in the standard. It changes gears a little bit and starts talking about the sales process. So this might be getting to know what the requirements are, maybe doing a quote, some sort of price estimate, and then taking it from there. So let's jump right into the requirements at 8.2, requirements for products and services. 8.2.1, it starts with customer communication. Communication with customers shall include, so these are not optional, these are things that we must communicate with our customers about in order to be compliant with the standard. A, providing information relating to products and services. B, handling inquiries, contracts, or orders, including changes. C, obtaining customer feedback relating to products and services, including customer complaints. D, handling or controlling customer property. And E, establishing specific requirements for contingency actions when relevant. So we have to have a plan for communicating with our customers, and we have to be able to get this information. The first one is giving them information regarding our products and services, handling their inquiries, handling their contracts or orders, and including any changes to those. So we have to have a system for making a communication with the customer about those things. We have to have a system for obtaining customer feedback. We have to have a system for handling or controlling their property. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but their property can include intellectual property. It's not just physical property. And we have to include establishing specific requirements for contingency actions when relevant. Sometimes you have contractual requirements that will say you need to make sure that you can continue my supply of product or supply of service so in an uninterrupted basis. So those are the requirements for communicating with customers. Now in 8.2.2, we're going to talk about determining the requirements of the products and services. When determining the requirements for the products and services to be offered to customers, the organization shall ensure that, so we have to determine our requirements, and we have to ensure that A, the requirements for the products and services are defined, including 1, any applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, and 2, those considered necessary by the organization. That would be us. So we are obligated. We have to determine the requirements, including anything that is applicable statutory and regulatory, and anything else considered by us. We have to make sure that we offer our customers that information. And then the next thing is the organization can meet the claims for the products and services it offers. We are obliged to determine the requirements, put them out there, and then meet those requirements consistently. So that's not really rocket science, but it is very important that whether you have a website that describes your products and services, or a catalog, or it's something that you work out between the customer and their requirements and what you're able to offer in terms of making a contract with them, these are the things that should be considered, including the statutory and regulatory requirements. And so we've determined what the requirements are. Now there's a requirement. It goes really step by step, very specifically about what we have to do. We have to determine it, let the customers know what we can do, and now we have to review the requirements. 8.2.3 and point 1. The organization shall ensure that it has the ability to meet the requirements for products and services to be offered to customers. The organization shall conduct a review before committing to supply products and services to a customer, to include. So anytime you're going to agree to something or take an order, enter into a contract, these criteria have to be satisfied. A, requirements specified by the customer, including the requirements for delivery and post-delivery activities. So anything that you're signing up for after delivery needs to be clearly stated in this agreement, or in the order, or in the contract, needs to be worked out. B, requirements not stated by the customer, but necessary for the specified or intended use when known. So even if the customer doesn't tell you something, anything that you know, you need to make sure that you tell them. If they didn't ask, you need to ask. If it's something that's going to determine whether the product is one type or another, you are expected to make sure that you proactively solicit that information. The requirements specified by the organization, anything that we require, we have to make sure that we specify that. That would be in terms of a contract for sure. Statutory and regulatory requirements applicable to the products and services. You might have a customer that's not aware that something is hazardous, or is not aware that there's a requirement for its handling or storage or licensing or transport or whatever. If they haven't asked and you know, you need to make sure that you tell them there are regulatory requirements that they may or may not be aware of. And the last one is any contract or order requirements differing from those previously expressed. I like this requirement because in sales and in operations that I've worked in before, it is a lazy habit that a lot of us have to just send them the same thing we sent them last time, or copy paste their last order, making sure that we're just going to kind of repeat that thing. And sometimes when we are on the purchasing end, which I've also worked in purchasing, it's a lazy practice to just take the last order and duplicate it, send it again, just say, yeah, give me 10,000 more of those things. So here, if there's anything that's different, so the first thing we have to review to see if there's anything different. That's what we're talking about here. And then if it is, we have to get that figured out. Anything that's different from that previously expressed, any new requirements, we need to make sure that we have all that worked out. It's finishing up with the organization shall ensure that contract or order requirements differing from those previously defined are resolved, and the customer's requirements shall be confirmed by the organization before acceptance when the customer does not provide a documented statement of these requirements. So this is about verbal orders, obviously. So you can take something over the phone, you can take their information, but the expectation is that you would check, confirm, and communicate back to them, even if they're the ones kind of being the lazy ones, that you would confirm it to them prior to taking an order. And there's a note about that. It says, in some situations, such as internal sales, a formal review is impractical for each order. Instead, the review can cover relevant product information, such as catalogs. So no, there doesn't have to be a documented review of every single thing, as long as there is a constant review of the catalog to make sure that all of that information is accurate and there aren't any changes to that. That can be the review. It can be a review of product line or review of catalog, rather than being reviewed by every specific order. In 8.2.3.2, the requirement is the organization shall retain documented information as applicable. So here is a requirement. We have to have a documented information about this. A, on the results of the review, and B, on any new requirements for the products and services. So we do have to have documentation about that, evidence or a record or something, some sort of documented information. And then again, we get one sentence about change. In this regard, again, they just kind of slip it in there all the time. 8.2.4, changes to requirements for products and services. The organization shall ensure that relevant documented information is amended and that relevant persons are made aware of the changed requirements when the requirements for products and services are changed. This is one of those really ISO-ish sentences. It's just a lot of words, and it just says be careful when you make changes. So if there's anything that is documented information, we need to make sure it's changed. So for example, it might be an order, but it also might be a process. It might be an instruction. It might be shipping instructions or packaging. If there's documented information out there, it could be a procedure or work instruction. Like I said, we have to make sure that it's amended there. And then also relevant persons are made aware of, so we have to have a controlled way of getting that information communicated out. And whenever requirements for products or services are changed, this might be blueprint management as well, drawings and sketches, and making sure that the correct revision, the old one is taken out and the new one is put in, so that only that is what is available. So that's about changes and all the review of product and service requirements. So next we're going to be going into a very, very big section. It's 8.3, design and development. Your organization may not do design and development at all, and it might be an exclusion for you, but if you do any type of design and development, even just working and supporting with a customer, this is going to be a long section. It's one of my favorite, however, in terms of just if I'm critiquing how the standard itself is written. It's very long, but it's very, very specific, and it's very easy to understand once you get the hang of it. This section coming up next, design and development, I think you're going to like it. But until then, keep improving.